Hello, listeners. I'm back. Welcome to another episode of the No Nay Never podcast. This is our reaction video to that fantastic win away at Wolves. Back-to-back victories for the Clarets, taking them 5 points out of the relegation zone, and the world looks pretty rosy. I am joined this week by regular panellists Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, and George Poole, because we're all ecstatic, gentlemen. Hello, everybody.
Hello, Natalie. It's nice to be back on, and it's nice to have so many nice things to talk about as well.
Definitely is. Well, let's jump straight in with you, Tom. Let's kick you off straight away because you were at Molineux. You were one of the lucky fans to get tickets. Must have been some atmosphere at the end of that game.
Oh yeah, it was one of the best away ends I've been in for a long time, especially at the end. Because obviously the context of how the game went, we're 2-0 up and cruising. We're thinking this is brilliant. We're going to get our first away win, and then obviously what happens for half time, we're pegged back, and then the second half gets worse and worse. We've set up for a draw with half an hour still to play. We're bringing Josh Laurent on, and he's thinking the overriding feeling for me was just frustration that we've let this kind of 2-goal lead slip against the worst team in the league, and it's all over. And it's just out of nowhere that we get this last minute goal, and it's just the confluence of things. The fact that the goal just didn't look like it was coming, the fact that it's just come out of nowhere, the fact that that's going to win us the game, and it being down at our end, it was just like 0 to 100 like that. It was absolutely fantastic. I absolutely went crazy, lost my head, lost my voice. It was brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. George, I think one of the things that struck me, and we talked about this briefly in our group chat today, was the togetherness of this squad. And Scott Parker talked a little bit on socials today, but seeing the reaction, seeing Josh Laurent, that video of him going after the Burnley fans after you'd think he'd scored the goal, doing the knee slide and celebrating like he'd just won the FA Cup or the Champions League for Burnley, and seeing all the subs running down the touchline to celebrate with everybody. It is something that we've probably not seen since peak Dyche years, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. I do think we were probably not very good, to be honest, for the majority of the game on Saturday or on Sunday. On Sunday, sorry. And I didn't think the majority of it was enjoyable. But then, with this squad, no matter how bad they play, there's always that sort of character to keep striving for, whether it be a draw or a win. In this case, luck fell our way. We managed to grab a winner. And yeah, the scenes at full time looked incredible there. I was, mightily jealous of Tom and all the travelling Clarets who were able to be there at Molineux.
Yeah, I mean, that's a classic George Poole grenade to stick in at the beginning of our podcast. So I'm gonna chuck that one. I'm gonna hot potato it and send it to Rich. I'm not entirely sure Burnley were terrible throughout that entire game. I thought the first half, Rich, we were really good.
Yeah, I think for 40 minutes until the penalty, it's a bit unfortunate. It is a penalty in modern day football. I know that dissect that, but for 40 minutes we largely controlled the game. And then, second half we had to battle. It was tough. Wolves were at home. Obviously they've had a really bad run, but I know Wolves have had a bad start, but they've been an established Premier League club for a while. There's no bad. I genuinely don't think there's any bad teams in the Premier League this season, and when other teams get a little bit of momentum, it can be difficult. We did, in my opinion, defend better second half than we did first half. We need to switch on at times, in my opinion, in terms of we give a lot of lazy possession away. This has been a frustration of mine, and I've said it in my group chat, even against Leeds. We give sloppy ball away, and sometimes, you're not always going to be able to defend and keep clean sheets. Like the last 2 games, our pass completion rate's been under 80%, which for a Premier League side is low.
What's it usually for a Premier League side, Rich?
Around 80, just above 80. Listen, there's different facts. Around 77, 78. So without looking off the top, I looked at that yesterday.
So to explain to those of us who aren't as technically minded as you are, is that quite a big gap, 3%? Because like that to me wouldn't seem that far off.
Like Wolves were in the mid-80s yesterday.
Oh, okay, really?
And Wolves are a different side than us, and we don't play out as much from the back. We do play long ball, which can, skew if that statistical or that diagonal ball, which we didn't execute over. I know I'm not going to count Hartman's as diagonal crossfield balls. That's the Fleming down the middle, but yeah, there's just times where we give sloppy ball away, which frustrates a bit, and I just feel there's a bit of sloppiness there. And I felt at 2-0, we kind of just slacked off a little bit. And I think the Parker substitution for Josh Laurent's a really, really interesting one. And it'd be interesting to hear the other lads' thoughts on that. But when Laurent was coming on, maybe I was one of the only ones, but I was like, I don't mind this sub, because at that point,
I didn't.
Because it only looked, forget what happened, as frustrating as it was to lose that 2-goal lead in the first half. That game was only going one way, and that was us losing it at that point. And I did feel we scored up a little bit. And then you look at, the goal came from being able to press that side of the pitch a little bit higher.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Well, let's open that up then to Tom, George, whichever one of you wants to go first. I mean, I personally had a little bit of nervousness. I knew when he was bringing Laurent on that I was like, we're going to go 5 at the back. And I did worry a little bit that we'd end up losing the game at that point. I went the other way. I was like, we're going to start defending too deep. We're going to invite pressure and we're going to end up losing. Tom, George, did you share those concerns, or were you like Rich thinking this was a really great substitution?
I personally, Natalie, you just mentioned there that you had fears that they were going to, sit back, invite pressure, and, the game was only going to go one way. Well, your fears were well founded, because that's exactly what happened in my view. I thought the move to 5 at the back meant that we lost all semblance of structure going forward, in particular. I mean, we'd defend well, because obviously when you got 5 at the back and you've got good players in midfield, you're invariably going to, keep out an opposition more often than not. And so to Rich's point, we were successful in probably tightening the game up a bit more. But it did mean that we just invited pressure. We didn't go forward with any sense of any zest. That we lost completely our triangles, the way we'd move up the pitch. Now, I agree with Rich that after 40 minutes, I thought we were, really poor up until the 65th minute, when Laurent came on. With that 4-3-2-1, we were really poor. But for the first 35 minutes, I thought we were fantastic. And just because, the team went off the boil, with that 4-2-3-1, I don't think it makes going to 5 at the back, it doesn't vindicate it in my mind. And neither does a lucky last minute goal either. Fair play, we kept Wolves out, but let's be honest, if we were against a team who were better than Wolves, they would have made that 3-2, because we just sat back for the rest of the game.
That game was going 3-2 with 4 at the back. Forget what that's the issue.
You're probably right.
Forget in the first 35 minutes at that point. It's irrelevant. Sometimes, in my view, you've got to. Sometimes in football, you've got to take a step back to take one forward again. And yes, we could say we got a bit lucky with a goal. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. But there wouldn't have been a last-minute goal to be scored if we was 3-2 down, which the way it was going before that sub went on. That's my view.
Yeah. I think you're probably right, but it probably just highlights.
I'm right. It's just that's kind of the way I've seen it.
It probably just, I think to me, Rich, that just highlights how rubbish we were. The fact that we let the game get to that situation. We had them on the ropes 2-0. An awful Premier League team. Let's stop being kind here. They're on 2 points after 9 games. They're awful. At 2-0, we made them look particularly awful. And by the 65th minute, we were looking to cling on to a draw and rescue a 2-2 draw. I think that's quite damning. Tom, what did you make?
George, a point away from home against your relegation rivals is a good point, and I don't think any of our attitudes to that should change because we started the game 2-0 up. The game is over 90 minutes. It doesn't matter. It doesn't freeze when you manage to get yourself 2 goals ahead. Irrespective of whether we came from 2 goals from behind or whether we let 2 goals slip, on paper, a point away from with your relegation rivals is really, really important. And I mean, Tom, I'm going to put this through to you based on what Rich and George said. Tom, for me, I thought Parker executed that game plan at the end really, really well. I think he wasn't going to risk, I didn't think, that point. I didn't see it that way, the game anyway.
Myself, I'm Team George on this one. I was feeling pretty similar in the stand, to be honest. The frustration for me wasn't, and before the game, if you'd said it's going to be a draw to a piece, it wouldn't have been the worst result in the world. I think the biggest problem that I'd have had with that is we don't get any points off any of the teams we're not expected to, if that makes sense. So we've beat Leeds, we've beat Sunderland, we've beat Wolves, we've got to draw a Forest, we've got beat off everyone else. So I think we need to win these games. And a team who's not won all season, that have just lost to Leeds and Sunderland in the previous few weeks, I'm thinking we need to win this. They're there for the taking, so to speak. And then if you'd said to any of us after 30 minutes, are these rubbish? They're there for the taking. Should we be winning this game at 2-0 up? I think we're all saying, that it's going to be a disaster now if we don't win this game. And that's how it felt to me. And I know Parker is obviously naturally a cautious manager. He's kind of safety first. And he looked very happy to me with the point. And I know you said, you asked me there, was it a Parker masterclass to kind of stabilise the game, as it were, and then nick it at the end? To me, we've won that in spite of Parker. I think Parker's gone there desperate to get a draw. I've seen people say, well, he's fetched Foster and Hannibal on and they've combined to get us the goal. But I don't think he's bringing them on to score. I think he's just bringing them on just to try and get us out of our own, we're sort of camped on the edge of our own box for about 20 minutes before that. I think he just wanted an out ball rather than thinking they're going to come on and send a little through ball through or take a chance. I think and the feeling after we've got that win, everyone's buzzing, and I know it's partly to do with the way we've won it, but you look at the gap now we've got on the bottom three, you look at the gap we've got on Wolves and West Ham especially, and it's a great feeling now. Now there's no pressure on the Arsenal game, but would we have felt like that if we'd thrown a 2-goal lead away at Molineux? I don't think we would, and to me, he wasn't trying to win that game, and he's lucky that we did. And I'm not knocking him, and obviously we're in a good position in the table. I'm not, I don't want to suggest like I'm having a massive go at him, because it wouldn't have been a devastating result to draw. But to me, when you're 2-0 up against the worst team in the league, that second half, I know Rich has said, bring another defender on, because then they're all over us. To me, there wasn't a massive delineation between before and after we brought Laurent on. We were sat really deep before we brought Laurent on. We were sat really deep after we brought Laurent on. We've seen how easy it was to score against him, to get behind him. Fleming's got those two centre halves on toast, and we're not even trying to get around them. They were there for the taking, and I was getting more and more frustrated.
It was the same against Leeds.
We were 2-0 up. We were 2-0 up against Leeds. It was 2 apiece, and we're sitting on it.
But we sat back at 1-0, Tom, against Leeds. It was only for
we scored a second against Wolves. We let 2 in, and then we sat back when it was 2 apiece. We didn't sit back at 2-0. We sat back at 2 apiece. That's the frustration.
I think my point is, though, we don't have any we don't have the right to just go forward against teams away from home. We're actually we don't have a good enough team. We've got good players.
If we're not good enough to score against Wolves.
But we went 2-0 up when we wasn't sat back.
Yeah, and that's my point. So why are we sitting back when it's 2 apiece? Why don't we go and try and score a third and win the game?
Because I don't think we were good enough to keep the ball. We weren't good enough.
The first half, though.
But right, yesterday, you look at the players. Our midfield three, other than I thought Ugachukwu and Luis were poor second half. The wingers were poor second half. So ultimately we wasn't keeping the ball. We kept giving it away.
Possession was quite bad in the second half.
So is that part? Is it the players? To me, that Laurent. So was it right? Was it wrong? In my opinion, Bromley Larson should have been off at half time and brought Schauner on. And was Laurent right? Was it wrong? That's the debate. But ultimately, we've got to, when we give the ball away so much, you're going to invite pressure. Now, is that the manager? No, that's my question to you. Is that the manager? Is that tactics? When you're giving the ball away, silly balls away out to play, first touches that are poor. So
the second looking at individual errors, Rich, that second goal that they conceded was just giving silly balls away, and we nearly lost that when Dubravka had to pull out that massive sale at the end.
Well, we
That
did it
was
in the first half with Twanzebe give the ball away. And another day we could have been 1-0 down, and on another day against Leeds, Anthony give the ball away, could have been 1-1. So it's kind of like where I am at the moment is we've got some good players, but we've still got some very average players for this league, and it's
press you to put which ones are going in which camp. Where would you want to strengthen in January?
We need another centre half.
Yeah, that's the weak position, isn't it? Centre half.
And we need a centre half, and ultimately, do you know what? For me, it's a really difficult one. Like we all like Anthony on this programme. He scored some big goals for us this season, but he gives the ball away a lot. Like too often. Brun Larsson's, just it looks like he's lost a yard of pace since he was last year here, and he wasn't quick then. So I actually agree with George and Tom. Like the second half was really poor, and it was really, really frustrating. And I understand why that substitution's frustrating when you're like 2-0 up. But at that time, at that moment in the game, I think Parker was watching it going, we're not playing well enough to go for it. That's the way I interpreted it anyway. Because the players weren't
confidence in his squad at that point to be able to see it through.
Not necessarily his confidence in his squad. I was just thinking, well, we're just not playing well. We're not able to retain the ball or get up the pitch. Whether is that Parker, is it the players? I don't know. Is it tactics?
Might be both.
And I kind of felt that his tactic was right. Let's get a 2-2, and if we get it, if we do manage to get in a position where we're able to push up the pitch like we did with the throw in, and then we can score that way. But it's a funny one, isn't it? Because it is negative. I agree with Tom and George. It's very, very negative. And he is negative at times. And there was times last season where we got draws where we felt we could have won. But there's other times where we was able to get victories off the back of being tight and staying in games. It's that risk reward, isn't it? I guess yesterday, I don't know, but I understand the logic to the substitution, and I wasn't against it as much as kind of like maybe what George and Tom was.
I wasn't.
I fully agree with I also fully agree with what the lads are saying, but I'm frustrated at when we give, again, I've said it 18 times now, but whoever's on the pitch, we've got to keep the ball better, because when we come up against a mid-table team instead of a bottom 6-7 team, we will lose them games with the ball retention that we're currently having. So that's my point on that.
I guess from my perspective, I'm struggling to understand, what was it that made them play so effectively in that 40 minutes, and we can look at the goals. Like the goals both came from Hartman to Fleming, were both exceptional goals and really, really stretched. Like we talked a lot when we played Villa away. It's a different type of skill set and much higher quality, but we talked about our frustrations against Villa, about how our midfield was being ripped apart by quality balls. That's exactly what we did to Wolves for both of those goals. Go on, George.
I think you've highlighted a good comparison there. I think our team, and look, we've obviously dissected how bad we were for probably the last hour of that game on Sunday, but for the first 40 minutes, I think was an epitome of how much of a different side we are, with four at the back, with Florentino, Ugachukwu and Cullen in midfield. I think it's been obvious since day one of this season that we were onto a winner last year with the formation we played. We managed to dominate teams, not like Company's team did, but we had control of games. Fleming had earned his shirt last season. He scored 12 goals in the Championship, so he deserved to start from the first game of the season. That should have been his shirt. And I think in the last couple of games we've seen, and it's no knock on Parker, because managers come up and you can understand why they go to a 5 at the back. We've played some top teams, but I think we saw on Sunday for those 40 minutes how improved we are with having more men in midfield to control the game, to have the triangles, to move our way up the pitch. And you've seen with the quality that we've got in there now, it's not like we're watching, with all due respect, Josh Brownhill in there. Florentino, for his, went off the boil in the second half. Fantastic player, played Champions League footy. And Ugachukwu was really good at driving us up the pitch. which allowed us to get into Wolves' dangerous areas. And then Fleming, I think, a word for Fleming, he was fantastic on Sunday as well. Grabbed 2 really good goals and was a handful for his defenders. So I think for me, I've really enjoyed just watching us play a bit more ambitious football over the last 2 weeks with a 4-man defence and a really high quality midfield. It didn't work for 90 minutes on Sunday, but we certainly saw what improvements it can offer us.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that, to be honest, George, and I do understand the point. Rich, you had some comparisons between that and the Leeds game. Obviously, we did have 5 at the back to start with the Leeds game. Like, is it, the points you wanted to make about some analysis on Leeds, does that fit into what George is saying there about the difference when we do play 4 at the back?
I'm not sure, but what I was going to say is that I definitely feel like I agree with George. Like from the start, I think we should play 4 at the back, and as the game changes, if you do need to go at the 5 at the back, and that's fine. But obviously at Villa, we got cut open down the middle. So we've obviously said to teams, well, you're not going to break us down through the middle, so you can have the ball out wide.
Yeah.
Against Leeds had 47 crosses against us. Wolves had 44 crosses against us in the last 2 games. Now that was
all well. That's all well and good when we used to have Tarkowski and me, isn't it? But these days, honestly, our confidence in our defence for our panel is low, isn't it?
Yeah, for me, we got away with it at Leeds. Calvert-Lewin had a couple of headers, and Tom mentioned in a tweet in our WhatsApp group, Bogle missed from a yard out. And 2 of those goals, the 2 goals that we conceded were from crosses. The chance that came in the last minute was from whether that's a cross or a long ball into the box. And it's kind of like a team's targeting at us, or we forcing teams out wide. So, for a comparison, just give me 2 secs because I didn't actually look at this. So yesterday, like I said, Wolves had 44 crosses into the box. We had 10. So that and similar numbers against Leeds. So it's really interesting that we're choosing to defend that way, but we don't really have a leader in there to. Centre halves worry me. It does worry me. I don't know what Tom's view on that is, because he's not been in for a while. But I look at Esteve and we know, he's a young lad who's got a lot of talent. He's fine. I think he's finding it challenging in the Premier League. He lost his minutes. He scored the second. He just was ball watching, wasn't he? And lost him. And Tuanzebe, not convinced by him. I think Ekdal's a better defender by Tuanzebe, but again, he's in that Brun Larsen category. I don't seem to want to run fast in Scandinavia, it seems to me. Very good footballers, technically.
Edge analysis.
Is there a quick Scandinavian foot? He was quick, wasn't he? What was his name that week? Was it Dennis Rommedahl? But anyway, we're going off back to Barclaysman now. But centre half out of anywhere on the pitch worries me the most, because we just don't look that solid, do we? Really, compared to last. And again, the quality obviously in the Premier League is a lot higher, but that crosses to me. I watched that Leeds game and I thought, they put a lot of crosses in, or is that just me? And then I looked at it, I was like, Jesus, 47.
Yeah,
that's one every second minute. Not that really when you think about it. So
yeah, no, I mean it's a fair point, isn't it, Tom? I think Steve's the one that we all got excited about and thought that he was going to make a much better step up than he had. But I think yesterday was one of the weakest games I've seen him play, and his positioning and his ball retention, which nearly ended up conceding us those points right to the death and forced Dubravka to have to pull out an absolute worldie of a save. It's concerning that we, like you say, to have, particularly in the Premier League, a team that's been so famously resilient in defence, that we do not have that confidence here. Is there anybody else in the ranks or any of the tweaks that you would do to shore up that defence and make those changes?
It's a tough one, isn't it, with Esteve? I mean, the stat that you mentioned there, 44 crosses. I mean, you can deal with 42 of them perfectly well, and then you score from 2, and you look like you're a crap defender because you've let 2 in. But if there's no pressure on every cross going into the box, there's no pressure from the midfielders, there's no pressure from the fullbacks or the wingers, it's a difficult job as a centre half. So I feel for him in that regard, and we're not controlling games the way we were in in the Championship where the other teams didn't have the ball or weren't particularly interested in attacking. So of course he's going to look weaker. I still think we've got a player in there. I think everyone probably agrees with that, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think with Tuanzebe, and Richard mentioned Brun Larson as well, I think the problem with both of them is they're not fully fit yet to me, looking at them. I think that's part of the reason Brun Larson looks like he's running through treacle when he gets sent away on the right-hand side, is because I don't think he's fully up to speed yet. He was coming and doing, like, he was warming up on his own on the pitch at half-time. So that tells me there's something wrong fitness-wise there, and that's why I was surprised, like you said, that he didn't come off at half-time. And I think it's the same for Tuanzebe. You've got to remember he's only his third start for us, fourth start maybe. He didn't play a lot last year. He's got a bit of a reputation, hasn't he, as a bloke who's made of glass. He didn't play much in pre-season. I think probably when you look at him next to Ekdal, and they're probably the two options that you're going to pick from at the minute. He's a bit more athletic than Ekdal. I think Ekdal's probably more of an out-and-out defender, but he's a bit slow. He's a bit cumbersome. I think Tuanzebe's probably got a bit more physicality once he gets up to speed, and at the minute we're just waiting for him to get up to speed. But I do agree with you in terms of how often he gave the ball away yesterday, Rich. It's like, I always think this with Luis as well. I mean, Luis looks so casual every time he's got the ball. It's as if he's got all the time in the world. But normally, he's good enough that he can get away with it without getting robbed. Whereas Tuanzebe looked like he had all the time in the world, but doesn't actually have the ability to back that up. So perhaps that's just a talking to he needs as much as anything else. I think for me, I'd probably stick with Tuanzebe. I think we know enough about Ekdal to know that he's quite a limited player at this level. I think perhaps in a three at the back, that's better for him. I think then you've got a bit of pace to cover him, especially if you've got Walker to one side of him. And I think that's probably why he was playing there. Or perhaps that's why we were playing three at the back at the start of the season. But in 5 games' time, if he's still looking as kind of cumbersome as he is now, but I'd be surprised if he was. I think he just needs some games, to be honest. And probably the same for Brun Larson as well. I know a lot of people have kind of written him off, and he's not the quickest. And there's been twice in the last 2 games where he's got sent away and he's not even got his shot off because he's slow. But I do think if he gets games, then we'll get more out of him. We'll see a better player. But I think you're right. If we did have any money to spend in January, I think centre half would be the first position you're looking at. If we got someone as good as Stev to play there, because the other worry with Tuanzebe is, like I say, he's sick now. He could be out for 2 months, come to in the next couple of games with his track record, and that's what happened last season. And then you've got Ekdal or Worrell, and you're talking about how slow Ekdal is. I mean, Worrell makes him look like the Speedy Gonzalez, doesn't he? So, yeah, you'd be a bit worried there, and I think that'd be the first position I'd be looking to strengthen in January if there is any money for that.
Good stuff. Josh Cullen penalty. Does anybody want to kick us off with a vote to say Stonewall penalty? Who thinks it was a penalty? Go ahead, George.
Yeah, for the benefit of our podcast listeners, that was me raising my hand, Tom raising his hand, and Rick raising his hand. Yeah, I think it's one of them, isn't it? It's typical. What you tell your attacker to do, the attacker did right. What you tell your defender, or in this case, midfielder, to do, Cullen didn't do. Cullen was late to the ball. It happens in football, doesn't it? The attacker did his job by getting his body, or in this case, his foot in between the ball and the defender, and he gets clipped, doesn't he? It's soft, it wasn't going to change where the ball was going. It wasn't going to change the attack in the slightest, but it's a foul because Cullen was the second man to the ball and therefore to the attacker's foot. So it's a clear-cut penalty for me, and it was a shame because it did change the game, but I didn't have any qualms there.
Nobody on the podcast thinks it wasn't. I think we all think it was.
I think you're right. It's soft, but if it's the other way around, he wants it because he hasn't played the ball and he's caught the man. I mean, he's not caught him enough for the guy to crumple down in a heap like he has done. But if they watch that, if did not give that, VAR wouldn't have overturned that. I don't think, just because the contact's quite minimal, but there's enough contact there to give it.
Yeah, once he gives it, you're not going to get it overturned. So I guess that comes back to your point that you were talking about before, Rich, in that we keep falling foul a bit this season to just silly errors, silly individual errors. 3 penalties that have been given away just by silly decisions against Liverpool, against United, and now Wolves as well. I guess, do you put that down to just because he's not like the young? It's a young squad, but like Josh Cullen's been in the Premier League before. They've got experience to know what they can and can't do. What do you do if you're Scott Parker with your coaching badge head on to iron out these little mistakes that are costing us?
I think George summed it up perfectly about Cullen. That's not. It's just one of them. That happens in football where I don't think you just go for the ball and the players got there. I think Cullen's unfortunate. I don't think Cullen could have actually done much more. I think it's a modern day penalty. I think when maybe we were, when we were growing up watching football, they don't get given, but they do get given. Now it is soft, but it is a penalty. But yeah, I don't think Cullen did much wrong. Anthony's, I think, was a little bit of fatigue, even though I still think it was incredibly harsh, that shirt pull. But we'll not get onto that one again. And I think Hannibal's just, a card short of a full deck, innit? Unfortunately. So, yeah, there's not much. I think it'd be good to talk about Hannibal in a minute, but I think sometimes just the pace and, like Tom was live yesterday. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it yesterday, but like, when you go to Premier League games live, compared to Championship games, like the intensity and how quick the game is so much higher, and the ball zips around a little bit quicker, and you've got less time to make those decisions. But yeah, I think Cullen was unlucky yesterday, if I'm being honest, like George said. But I think we're in a rock and a hard place as a team, aren't we? Because we can't do what we did against Aston Villa and leave big gaps in the middle of the pitch. You do need to stay compact, so then the option is, well, you kind of give space to the players out wide.
Yeah.
But then, in my opinion, like, we've got to defend them crosses into the box better. But how do we do that? I think that's where, like, when we had Taki and me, and they were experts at that. And that's the, like, people have said about Esteve, it's the best centre half we've seen at Burnley. And I was like, listen, he's got talent, but hold on a little minute. Let's have a little bit of respect to who's gone before them, and who's proven at this level. And so I think we don't need to change anything massively setup wise, but we do need to be a little bit, in my opinion, better at stopping the crosses coming into the box. And then our two centre halves do need to be in a little bit more control. But I'm going to go back to what Tom said about Ekdal. If we're going to defend that way, where we're going to defend quite deep and quite narrow, then in my opinion, Ekdal's a better option than Tuanzebe. Yeah. I would personally start Ekdal over Tuanzebe because I feel he defend the box a little bit better in them situations. But if you're kind of playing where you're a little bit more open in midfield, then I'd play Tuanzebe. So it's going to be but like, I can't also disagree with Tom as well, because I look at Tuanzebe, he's probably got a higher ceiling than what Ekdal's got. So, but going back to the individual errors, yeah, I just think it's just because of that speed of the game and just getting used to that higher, that higher level. And
yeah,
I'd be like the Cullen one. I've got no annoyance with Cullen. If we concede another silly penalty next weekend against Arsenal, which costs us through a handball or a shirt pull or somebody pulling somebody down, especially against them lot at set pieces, then that would be really frustrating. But
that is worse. At least he was trying to make a tackle there.
I think all done them playing football. It's just unfortunate. And like I said, when we were growing up, that wouldn't have been given as a penalty, but they are now because of VAR.
Yeah.
So yeah. But on that, I didn't mention it. I thought the referee had a really good game yesterday. We seen the referee against Leeds, who was the most pedantic person you could ever referee.
Very well done, Rich.
Yeah,
well done.
I was going to use another word to go with alliteration, to go with P. But yeah, like, I think the ref yesterday, I think he got both VAR decisions right. I think that Fleming one, they could have overturned it, but there was a common sense that they were both going at each other. And then the game just flowed, didn't it? But it was just even though the second half wasn't good for us, it was still a good game of footy for like my mates watched it and said it was a great game to watch. So, and I thought, yeah, fair play to the ref. I thought that yesterday was the best refereeing game I've seen for a long time.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Well, Rich teased us with that, Tom, George. Let's throw this out to Tom. super subs combined to get us that last gasp. Let's try and end this podcast on the positives of that last goal, and obviously what this puts us in the league and our form against our relegation rivals. We've done a deep enough dive, I think, into some of the things that we need to iron out going forward. Considering the up and down season this had, and some of the off the pitch things that have been going on with Hannibal, particularly the lead stuff as well, I think it was right to bring him on towards the end. I don't think wouldn't necessarily want to see him come on earlier, but what an incredible pass! Like the weight and the direction of that ball to put it straight through to Foster's feet, and a great finish as well. It was class. It was real class, Tom. I think it wasn't the kind of ball and decision making you'd expect to see from Burnley players, I think.
Yeah, and as George and Richard will have noted in the past, I'm not a massive fan of either Hannibal or Foster.
No.
And as I mentioned earlier as well, I don't think he's bringing them on thinking Hannibal's going to play a lovely slide through ball. Foster's going to bend his run, stay on side, and just tuck it away in the last minute. I think he's bringing them on. And I did say to my dad when he fetched Foster and Hannibal on, I thought at least he's not took Fleming off. He stayed with two up front, so we've got more of an outlet. I thought that was good. And I think because we were the big frustration was how passive we were in that second half. And Hannibal will at least he'll run for days, and he'll get you up the pitch just by doing that. So I could see why he brought them on. And it was just unbelievable that happened. It was like, because we're so deep, we're not even trying to score a goal, I don't think, in that last 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden we win the ball on the edge of their box and it breaks. And it's just, like when you're watching it live and you're just like, oh my God, like Hannibal's in loads of space here and he's got a man in front of him. And if he plays that pass, we're going to score. And then it's like,
and he does.
He's going to get a shot off. And it's like, this is going to go in. And then you're watching it and it's trundling in like so slowly.
It had to be slow as well, didn't it?
I thought that bloke was going to get it off the line. Oh, it was sensational. I lost my head for a minute. And then I thought, but what if he's offside? Or it's the same VAR from Man United who's going to give him offside even though he's onside. And then I'm like so nervous. While they're waiting to take the kick off, I'm like, please don't come up and say VAR checking offside.
Yeah.
And then as soon as it was like celebrating all over again. As soon as they took that kick off, I'm like, yes, he was onside.
Yeah, it was a good one.
And then they go up the other end, and I'm like, no, they're going to equalise. It really reminded me of. Do you remember when we beat Palace 3-2? This was probably 2017, I think, 2016.
Oh my God! Yeah, at Turf.
2-0 up at the Turf. Yeah.
Yes.
Palace get it back to 2 apiece. Matt Loughton mental handball, and then somehow we get a breakaway goal, 95th minute, Barnes scores. And then in the 96th minute, Andros Townsend hit the post from 20 yards, and it was like, oh my God. It was just like that.
I love it. I love it. We just don't get games like this in the Premier League very often, which is why a lot of us do prefer the Football League. But it's when it does happen and it happens at the top level, it is genuinely a joy to watch, and I do absolutely love it.
Do you know, going back to that Palace game, do you know what always makes me laugh about that goal? Obviously, Barnes gets all the credits. It was a terrible pass to Gudmundsson.
Oh my God, it's so.
All he had to do was slip him in, and Gudmundsson was in 1-on-1, and you're over 10 yards out wide. Yeah, it's good. I forgot about Townsend hitting the post. It's amazing, isn't it, football, how it's so structured nowadays. And then you have that where it's like they chuck everybody up front. Estev's all over the show. No one's marking anybody anymore. And Dubravka.
Dubravka that contorts his arm and somehow manages to. Yeah. That is going to be one of the most important saves of this season, George. And I think. Was it you put that in the group then saying that's as good as a goal at this league? Like the composure there for him to do that, and after his defence had left him exposed, the ball's gone past him and he still manages to get it out there. Like he's been some signing as Dubravka, right?
He's been amazing. Yeah, they mentioned this on the Super Sunday Extra Time last night. They said, there's goals which define a season, especially they talk about the title winning teams, and Carragher owned up to that. He said, we always talk about, for example, one of Gabriel's goals for Arsenal this year, it'll be the one that, goes on and tees them up to win the league. But for us, I think that save could be, as defining a moment, because as big as it was for us, and Tom, you'll have you were in ecstasy in the away end. it was the complete opposite in the home end. I mean, we were absolutely just chuckling away watching at home because, you know, the difference between the sort of mood between the home and away fans was so stark, and it summed up where both teams are at the moment. You know, it was a defining goal for us, and to be honest, it was a death knell for Wolves. It really was. It's going to take something, you know, mighty for them to survive now, and I think a moment like that can just turn a season. Remember when Matt Taylor hit the post against Leicester and they went up the other end, you know, survived and then went and won the Premier League the next year. You know, if that goal had gone in, we'd have stayed up, they'd have gone down. These moments are huge. And I think that Dubravka save could well be ours this season. And hats off to him, because it's so good to see a veteran keeper as well, who, you know, has played the last 8-9 years as just a backup. And that's all he was to be, come to a team and just thrive when given the chance as a number one.
Yeah, just looking at Wolves' fixtures now, picking up on that, George. They're away at Fulham, then they're away at Chelsea, they're at home to Palace, away at Villa, at home to Forest, at home to United, away at Arsenal, at home to Brentford, away at Liverpool, away at United, and it's the 3rd of January before they play West Ham. And then they go back to being Everton, Newcastle, City, Bournemouth, Chelsea. This is the problem with Wolves. They've played a lot of their winnable games already when they've been really bad. So by the time they play a game which is next on paper winnable, it's the 3rd of January. And by that point, West Ham, you would have thought, have got their house in order. I still don't think West Ham will be at the bottom, by the way, but that's a debate for another day. But yeah, you're right. Like, Wolves are now in a really, I mean, that those back-to-back wins put us, we are now 5 points clear, 9 games, 10 points. And I think this is a point that Rich said earlier on, George, sticking with you. So like, we've had so many question marks about how, you know, everybody's like, oh, they're going to finish 20th, they're really rubbish, they can't do anything, they're just a yo-yo club, whatever. We've, out of the games that we've played, out of the 9 games, 5 of those were against really tough opposition. And the games that we were going to get points from, we've beaten Leeds, Sunderland, Wolves, and we've got a point off Forest. Like, what more could Burnley have done at this stage of the season?
It's brilliant, isn't it? What more could we have done? We could have been the, you know, the one. We're probably the one team who couldn't beat Ange Postecoglou's Forest. I don't know how, you know, we let them take a point off us, but no, that's the thing. We just need to take care of our business, don't we? You know, beat these teams in and around us, because these days of the Premier League, you like to Bournemouth and Brighton. They're just too strong. You know, we might get the odd result, but really your bread and butter is against these teams down at the bottom. And you know, we just need to take it without being cliche. It's like a week at a time. You know, like this week right now, we're 5 points clear and we're out the relegation zone. If we can just keep racking up weeks where we're above the drop, you know, it's just going to breed confidence. And especially, you know, there's many weeks, to be honest, to your point, Natalie, that West Ham stay below us, I'll probably start getting a bit more optimistic that they could really be in trouble. You know, Nuno's gone there, and, you know, you say they'll turn it round, but they've not shown any signs of a heartbeat, you know, yet.
I think the thing is, though, this season is it's not like they might get better, but it still might not be enough because of, you know, some of them won't go down now, and, you know, credit. Yeah. I'm going to say every credit to them. And if there's any, you know, fair play, no, you've got to say fair play. There's no point begrudging clubs. You know, like I've been to Sunderland a few times and I've had nothing but good things to say about the people, you know, and especially the fans who stuck through and through thick and thin. And obviously, some fans come and go, but fair play. And you know, everyone can say Sunderland's had an easy start, but then they went away in Chelsea and won 2-1 and scored a great goal in the last minute. So, like,
crazy scenes.
So, yeah, you know, so, like, the thing is, like, West Ham might pick up, Forest might pick up under Dyche, but I think it's going to be quite a high points tally this season to stay up.
Yeah,
so
me too.
West Ham,
37, 38, maybe.
Yeah, maybe around that. So, like, these teams might pick up, but it still not might be enough. And all we can do is just do what we're doing. But at some point, and this is what frustrating about the Liverpool game in particular, is that, like, you look at their turn, you know, maybe they're struggling at the moment, well, more than struggling at the moment. At some point in the season, you do have to pick points up against some of the better sides. In all of Dyche's seasons when we went up, we did beat some big teams. So it's, you know, like whether it's Arsenal this Saturday or get a point away from home somewhere. You know, we beat Chelsea away, we beat Liverpool away, we beat, you know, we did beat United, didn't we? We got some draws at Old Trafford. So You know, at some point you do need to start. And even though it's hard, I'm not saying it's not, but you can't just always be relying on beating the teams down there. You know, which we can do. You know, we can definitely be competitive at Turf. We will be competitive at Turf Moor against every club, in my opinion.
We will be at the weekend against Arsenal.
Turf, we will.
Yeah. Arsenal are bottom of the league at the moment in terms of scoring goals from open play. And
well, we won't score from a set piece when we can't beat the front man. Jesus, like I was trying to give Armin credit yesterday, like, and I was like, are we told to take from front post corners? Because somebody who's got such a good left foot in open play to then not be able to beat the front man. Straight. Then Walker did it, didn't he? He took a free kick when he had that counter attack from. He didn't beat the first man. Anyway.
Tom, do you think that, going off what Richard said there, do you think Parker has the well, I'm just going to say the ability to release the handbrake and go for it? Because I think if you're going to go ahead and get those big results against a better side, and you're going to get those headline results, there's an element to throwing the dice. There's dice, and there's an element to throw the dice. You don't throw the dice, you throw the dice, and an element of courage there and taking more risks. Does Parker have that in him to be able to deliver that?
I think at home that's where it's going to be, isn't it? And we were unlucky not to get a point off Liverpool, and that's the only game we've lost at home so far. But we've not really played, apart from obviously Liverpool, any of the big teams yet at home. So it'll be interesting to see how we do against them. I thought we did have our final ball was lacking, and we didn't trouble the keeper, but we did have a bit of a threat on the counter against Liverpool. When Richard was talking then about you've got to pick some points off these teams as well, it brought to mind Brentford at home this season. They've drew with Chelsea, they've beat Liverpool, they beat Man United. It's them, they're massive results, and obviously they went to Sunderland and got beat, but they can pick points up against anyone, and that's what we've got to aspire to. And our record, I mean, we've played most of these top teams away, but our record's not been good, and we've not already got, apart from obviously United away and Liverpool away, we've not got too close to picking many points up against these teams. I don't think Arsenal's going to be the benchmark. I think they're trundling along really well, aren't they? They're like a Pulis, Stoke or Dyche Burnley on steroids, aren't they? It's like a £1 billion team that are just set up to like eke 1-0 out, and it's really frustrating to play against. And I can't see us breaking them down. I heard a stat in the Premier League games in October, the month's just gone. They didn't concede one goal. They conceded one shot on target. 3 clean sheets, conceded one shot on target. So it's going to be difficult in that one. But
come up against Burnley.
That's impressive, isn't it? That's impressive. That is impressive. Football, you attack and you defend. Really, as Dyche would say, it's a simple game. And if you're not, that is impressive. I like what he's doing. He's been Arsenal got criticised for years, didn't they, for being soft. Easy to play against, a soft touch for nice footballers. And then people don't like it when you're winning. And that's when
you don't like it when you're winning, and they can't do anything about it, which is what the criticism we got for years. So then they just start hurling abuse at you and saying, "Oh, how do you watch that football every single week?" It's like, no, it's a game of chess. Football is strategy chess. If we've set up our team in a certain way to not let you win, moves on you to find out a way to counteract that. You can't just expect us to roll over and play the way you want to, and that's just what he's doing. So yeah, I get it.
Slot going, blaming the fact they've lost 4 on the spin on the fact that teams are playing long ball against them and they can't deal with it. And it's like, oh, sorry about that. Yeah. You give crazy on-track transfer, got beat off in 5-1, and he went, oh yeah, this is a better game for us because they got it down on the floor and played. It's like,
just go
don't try and play football against us.
It's a bold strategy.
That's again with Liverpool. It's like they've ripped it up. What was working, and you're going like,
why?
That Brentford lad's throw, I can't remember his name, but that's some long throw. That.
Yeah, the right back. Yeah.
Oh,
proper throw, isn't it?
It's not quite Delap level, but.
No, I was just listening to the Guardian football podcast, and they said the only person they think's better than that is Delap. Delap had it really flat, and this lad's not quite there, but he's almost there.
I do quite love the fact as well that Brentford play in the same kit that Stoke. It genuinely feels like we've gone on a time machine back to watching Stoke, but just in a different club. It's really great. Right, let's wrap this up so we don't go over the hour mark.
Sorry, Natalie, can I just raise one more point of order? and George mentioned the Guardian Football Podcast. Now, Max Rushton on there, he touted Zian Fleming's first goal as goal of the season so far. And we have not spoken about it, and it was absolutely unbelievable.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing.
So good.
Is that better than Schwaner's?
Sorry, Rich, go on.
Is that better than Schwaner's?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
I think so. The ball from Hartman's superb, but then Fleming. So when that ball's coming over his shoulder, I'm thinking he's in here, but he's got to take a good first touch. And has he got the pace then to hold the defender off?
Yes,
and he doesn't. He's took that over his shoulder. He's hit it the first time on the volley. I think, if he really whacks that and it goes in the top corner, undisputed goal of the season. But because it's like a controlled little pass finish into the corner, it doesn't look quite as spectacular. So you get points off for that. But the technique was unbelievable. And for a bloke who's never scored in the Premier League and that's your first goal, absolutely sensational. Like
both goals were good. Both goals. Go on, George.
Yeah, both good. But that one was just unreal.
Sensational.
So good.
It was sensational. One more point of order just before we close. That is more of a gripe from me. In the latest minutes of the fan advisory board, you listen to this sentence, folks. We've listened to your voices and requested the higher allocations for Aston Villa and Wolves, brackets, 3,110 tickets rather than 1,800. Visiting these clubs in previous seasons, we have not gotten close to these higher allocations. So over to you. So there I was reading that a couple of weeks ago. I thought, I'll go to Wolves, I'll get a ticket. I go on the website, sold out, and lo and behold, what was the allocation that we took? In the press release, it was the 1,800. So what they've put in the minutes there about selling more tickets and giving the higher allocation for Wolves didn't bear true. So a real shame to have missed out on Wolves because we did not take the higher allocation. For another time, we had it at Tottenham earlier the year, Tottenham earlier this season, and now Wolves. It's a shame, isn't it?
It is a shame. I will let you challenge our board with that in our next meeting, which I think we've got coming up in the first week in November. So there you go.
Fan advisory board, friends.
I know. I was going to say, if we don't see George again on this podcast, he's a bit crazy at the fan advisory board meeting.
I got halfway through watching that fans forum, and I got sick of looking at George's little white sweater on. I'm sure you had a notebook or something like that.
Why were you there, George? Like,
I was making notes.
You're not getting enough exposure. Like, why did you? Why were you there?
I watched that and I thought, Jesus, doesn't Alan Pace have a poison chalice doing his job? A couple of no offense, but some questions.
It's hard, and I know he gets challenged on a lot of things, and a lot of the times it's just
he was good, he was good. He was very good. I've got to say,
he has the patience of a saint. And listen, I can tell you this now. Some of the questions that that either come through the fan advisory board or get sent to us from other people, like I've started just like read some of them. I'm like, I can't ask him that. That's just a pointless question. When we had the VAR meeting, we had a lot of guests in there as well. It was like, for God's sake, just stop talking. And he has the patience of a saint. He doesn't, even if he's heard it before, he'll just calmly announce it. And you're right. Some of the things he gets asked are ridiculous. I've seen him lose his temper once, and it was justifiably so because there were some fan attacks on his family. But that's the only time I've ever seen him lose his cool.
Most people are like very, very respectful and ask the questions of what they want, but I think like people's got to realise that some stuff that they want is so niche and individualistic.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Right, I'm going to wrap up there because my thing was going to be, does anybody have any points of order before we close? And you all have put them through anyway, so which is really, really good. So we're going to end this podcast on a positive note. Burnley are 5 points clear the relegation zone, back-to-back wins. We have beaten Sunderland, Leeds. We have beaten Wolves. We've got a point against Forest. And next up, it's Arsenal. And we're going to get a minimum 0-0 at home, mark my words. Dave and I will be back on Thursday with the preview show for that game. So do tune into that, please, and keep an eye on social media to see where we get to. My thanks go to Tom, to George, to Rich for their analysis this week. And we will be back next week with another episode of The Analysis Show. Please do hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and stick any comments or feedback that you've got in the thread. We will be delighted to hear from you. I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the Known and Never podcast. Until next time.
The Known and Never podcast is brought to you in association with the talkSPORT Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The Analysis Show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting nonanever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners talkSPORT. We are proud to be associated with the talkSPORT Fan Network.
Right,